movie, Saving Mr. Banks. Were you familiar with the story behind Mary Poppins?
No, not really. No, not particularly. I had actually read long ago. I had read a biography of Walt Disney, and I was familiar with an awful lot of the grander history of Mickey Mouse and building the park and the TV shows, and his break into live action film. But I wasn't as familiar with the specifics of the battle royale that went on for the 2 weeks that Pamela Travers was out in Los Angeles.
I feel like that would have a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting kind of look into the creative process when somebody is very unhappy and the other people just want to survive.
Were you a fan of Mary Poppins, like the movie?
It's funny. I did not see it when it first came around. I saw it on one of its later re-releases, and I viewed it as this kind of like interesting museum piece. But at the same time, I had tears in my eyes, even when I was only 13 or so. But you got to the end of the movie, and it was "Let's Go Fly a Kite." That's a pretty great moment.
This is the first film that somebody has played Walt Disney. How did you feel taking on such a big role?
Well, an honor and a burden, a responsibility. I didn't want to screw it up, and I wanted to be as accurate as possible. I wouldn't necessarily cast myself as the man, but there I was. And the opportunity to there's an awful lot of great anecdotal stories about Walt, which we should all call him, as he wanted to be called himself. A lot of people from the studio made their way specifically to find me and tell me a little story about their interaction with him. And the vast video collection of Walt performing as Walt Disney helped out a great deal. It was a unique, it was an odd challenge to be confined in one way, but at the same time free to be the first person who ever puts a stamp on it as an interpretation of who he was.
You still look like you. You didn't change your like your mustache.
I grew that, and I did a little bit with my hairline, and after that, otherwise, what are you going to do? Outside of casting somebody who looks a lot like him, quite frankly, Paul Giamatti could have played him. He and I could have switched roles fine here. It might have been a better movie.
No, I didn't. I had no idea. I didn't know about P.L. Travers. I had no information at all. It's not commonly talked about. It's not part of the public understanding of the book or the film. So it was fascinating. She was an incredible woman, actually, because if you think about the time during which she was growing up and the accessibility of education and indeed, access to great men of letters, it was not easy. And she just went there and did it and left Australia and reinvented herself and continued to do that through a life that was not, I think, very easy. She was in pain a lot of the time. And I think it was probably emotional pain.
It was all there in the script. It was so well drawn by Kelly Marcel, and the character was so clearly defined, and yet there was plenty of room for interpretation at the same time. But her father, P.L. Travers, who Emma plays, her father was very hard to find any information on, because he was a working man and a father of his children, and it was 1907 in Australia. There wasn't really much chronicled about his life. It's an emotional script. The film's, man, you want to have a cold, black, decayed heart to not be moved by this film. That's very judgmental of me, but no, it's really moving. I found when I read the script, the script was really moving.
Are you familiar with the story behind Mary Poppins, the movie, before reading the script?
I was not familiar with the story of what went into the making of Mary Poppins and P.L. Travers, and no, I was not familiar with this at all. Were you?
No, it just seems like such a slick, perfect movie. When you see it as a kid, you'd never imagine that it was incredibly complicated or troublesome to make. So that's part of what was so interesting about making this movie.
Even in something as seemingly light as Mary Poppins, there you see the kind of painful underpinnings of human experience that kind of animate it. I love as a kid and singing to my kids, "Let's Go Fly a Kite," and I get to sing and dance with Emma Thompson. Well, it's pretty nice.
How did you decide for Thompson to play Walt Disney, an iconic role that's never been played before?
Well, that's it. The first thought was, that we probably needed an icon to play an icon. And Ronna Kress, our casting director, said, that was her quote, and I said, you know what, that makes complete sense. And so as soon as Tom signed on, I didn't have as many sleepless nights about presenting Walt Disney on the screen for the first time.
Right. And he looks so good. He's like, I mean, not necessarily changed his looks by chance, but he just comes off as Walt Disney. He has that aura.
Yeah, we talked early on about I didn't want to do any prosthetics, or we said, you know what, I tend to, when I look at prosthetics in a movie, a lot of times I'm watching the chin instead of the person, the plastic chin or whatever. And I said, you know what, let's capture the essence of Walt Disney more than anything. And you're so talented that that's the way to do it. And he said, and he agreed completely. So he did very, very little. And it was more about him just kind of becoming Walt from the inside out.
Well, I worked on the movie. I was a consultant, so I saw every foot of it, and I love it. It's brilliantly done with a great deal of love and devotion, dedication, and all the people in it are just stand out, really, truly. Yes, he does.
So, was he nervous having you so involved?
Well, I don't think. Here's the thing. In the beginning, he was maybe a bit nervous, but we bonded right away, and we had so much in common. And he's 50 years my junior, but he has that attitude that I had, full of fun and energy and that type of thing. And we both feel the same way about music, and he's a very musical young man. And so it was great. I mean, I sit there at the piano with him, and we play together and studied the way my fingers worked, and it was kind of fun.
Alison Owen, the producer, came to me with this story and asked me if I would write it, and that's how I learned that P.L. Travers existed and that all of these crazy things went on behind the scenes of the making of Mary Poppins. And yeah, the minute she told me, I was like, I have to do that.